Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Homeschooling, boon or bane? What is it for you? My answer is, it depends. Whether boon or bane, it depends. On what? On you, the parent. What's the parent's biggest motivation for homeschooling? It is to protect the child from negative influences. But let me give you some good news, and that is, there's nowhere to hide. There's nowhere to hide. So what must you do? Think about this. If you have a big swimming pool in your house, or if you live near the sea or near a lake or near a river, and you are terrified of the possibility that your child might fall into the water and drown. Now, first of all, is that fear valid? Is it justified? Of course. You would be very stupid if you did not have that fear. Very justified fear. That if my child falls into the pool, or if my child falls into the lake, or into the sea, whatever, then my child will drown. Now, what is the solution? Is it to keep your child under lock and key inside the house? Or is it to teach your child how to swim? Which is the safety? Which is the surety? Which has the best chances? Which gives your child the best chances of survival? Dumb question, right? So you would teach your child to swim. Now, how do you teach your child to swim? By attending a Zoom class? By looking at a lesson or a video on swimming? By watching Olympic swimmers? How do you teach your child to swim? By swimming. By getting into the water. Is there any other way? There isn't, you know that. Let's expand this. How do you teach your child to communicate effectively? By communicating. How do you teach your child conflict resolution skills? By being in a conflict and resolving it. How do you teach your child interpersonal skills, interpersonal abilities? How do you teach your child how to lead teams? How do you teach your child how to collaborate? How do you teach your child how to deal with people different from himself or herself? Because society is not homogeneously constructed of people who are clones of yourself. How do you teach your child to deal with failure? How do you teach your child to deal with success? How do you teach your child to deal with heartbreak? By being in those situations and learning how to swim, learning how to get out of them, learning how to get the best out of them. There is nowhere to hide. There is nowhere to hide. So to protect your child from negative influences is a justified fear, justified desire. But the solution to that is not to hide, because there is nowhere to hide. We are only talking school. What are you going to do in college? What are you going to do in professional education? What are you going to do when your child travels, goes to a different country, goes to a different culture? There is no way of homing any of that. So do you want your child to be prepared to deal with all that? Or do you want to have a greenhouse plant which the first gust of wind will knock flat? That's your choice. Now, I'm not saying to you, therefore, that homeschooling is bad necessarily. I'm just putting the cards on the table as I see them. So, what's the solution? In my view, homeschooling is the wrong solution. What is the right solution? The Standard Bearers Academy. The problem is schools as they exist today. You want to solve that problem? What must you do? Create better schools. By and large, globally speaking, medical treatment, right? Healthcare, today, globally speaking, is in a problem, is in a mess. Quality of treatment, predatory doctors and hospitals, a treatment which is based on making money rather than alleviating suffering. All of these are problems. Now tell me, will you accept it if I tell you, therefore, that don't go to a hospital, don't talk to a doctor, treat yourself at home? Does it make sense? Or is the solution to improve the quality of healthcare? Which one? I am living in a country which has bad healthcare. What must I do? Treat myself at home? Or work to create better healthcare? Create a model hospital that will show the world how healthcare should be done. Which one? So if you have a problem with schools as they exist today, believe me, I am with you. You've got a big problem with schools as they exist today. Because the way schools exist today is rooted in 1760 to 1840, the period of the Industrial Revolution. Prior to that period, prior to 1760, schools did not exist in the way that we see them today. The period of the Industrial Revolution, when assembly line manufacture changed the face of society. The Industrial Revolution changed culture, economy, education, fashion, role of men and women, family structure and dynamics, even day and night. Someday we'll talk in detail about this as well. The Industrial Revolution was ostensibly about manufacturing, but its effects extended from the factories into homes, into schools, into lifestyles, into attitudes, into perspective on life, into roles of power and authority, and totally changed life as it was known before that time. One of the most significant of those changes was in school education. There were no schools or madrasas as we know them today prior to 1760. Incidentally, for those of you who think I'm talking about these two things and you think they are very different, they are not. They're exactly the same. Our madaris and schools, secular schools, are exactly the same. In terms of structure, in terms of motivations, in terms of attitudes, in terms of what they are designed to produce, exactly the same. The only difference is this one teaches a different curriculum, that one teaches a different curriculum. That's it. Schools as we know them today did not exist before 1760. Sure, there were schools in the world, and there are schools in the world which are older than 200, 250 years, especially in Britain. But standardized schooling as we know today is an Industrial Revolution related phenomenon. I'm not saying this to give you a history lesson, but to put my finger on the root cause of the whole problem. And that is the reasons why schools were created the way they are. those reasons are no longer valid. And so the whole system is irrelevant. Today, the system is toxic and harmful, and it ensures failure in our world today. And if you don't believe me, just look at society. What does society look like? Why do you even talk about homeschooling if the system was good? Currently, our schools are run on a model that combines assembly line manufacturing with prisons. Our schools are a combination of assembly line factories and prisons. What do I mean? Let me talk to the students. The gate shuts after you, Miss Student, enter the school. And you can't leave until it opens again. Class times are indicated by buzzers and bells because apparently you can't be trusted to keep to the time, neither you nor your teachers. Your day is scheduled. There is nothing that you can do in class, while you are in class, there's nothing you can do without first asking permission, even for private things. Your day is scheduled not according to your needs or desires, but for the convenience of the administration. You cannot study, or eat, or play, or read, or simply gaze into space anytime you want. You can only do those things at specific designated times foisted on you without consulting you. And the last one, gazing into space, you can't do at all. Sound familiar? The reality is that our schools today are for that those who they are meant for, that is students, have no say about what happens to them there or how. All decisions without exception are taken by parents or teachers or school administration for their own convenience. Now, what must happen? Think about this. Today, we reward or punish the wrong people, that is students. Students are actually our customers. They must be benefited. And it's our job as teachers and school administrators to benefit them. We must be assessed, not them. And if we are able to equip our students to succeed, then we should be rewarded. And if not, we should be trained to be able to do that. For this, we need to teach differently, we need to teach different things, and we need to test differently. Today, we teach by giving answers. We teach discrete subjects as if they don't have any relation to each other, even though in reality they do. We try to stuff the brains of students with unrelated facts and grade them on their ability at random recall within a specific time frame. We test memory alone, that's it. We don't test understanding, we don't test, much less do we test application of knowledge or value addition. And that too, value addition by somebody who comes by default with a fresh perspective, which is the greatest asset, but we ensure that that is slaughtered as quickly as possible. And the child becomes a conformationist and conformist, not confirmationist. We discourage questioning. In our madaris, in our religious schools, it is sacrilege to question the teacher. We treat disagreement as treason and we punish imagination and lateral thinking. Dumb obedience is our principal virtue. Think about this. No wonder parents are sick of this. But is the solution homeschooling? Think about this. Today, students only need to be literate and numerate and have a degree, have a desire to learn. That's it. They can learn anything on their own with remote guidance if necessary. But what remains necessary is practical application, experiencing knowledge in action, problem solving, human relations, conflict resolution, collaborating with others. None of this can be automated. Now, think about this. The purpose of education, the purpose of all teaching and education is threefold, or rather three things to focus on. One, to create people of understanding. Number two is to teach citizenship. And number three is to teach entrepreneurship. Now, all of these are collaborative processes. They cannot be done in isolation. Let me give you a quick brief of what each of these things are. Each of these things is. Number one, to create people of understanding. Who are people of understanding? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala described people of understanding in the Quran. Al-ulil albab. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala showed us how we can create such people. Tarbiyatul Rijal. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala praised understanding, which is the peak of intelligence. It's not merely an IQ or an EQ score. It is the application of IQ and EQ to live in the world as responsible, contributing citizens working to create a positive influence on society. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala defined the purpose of education. And He said, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن في خلق السماوات والأرض واختلاف الليل والنهار لآيات لأولي الألباب الذين يذكرون الله قياما وقعودا وعلى جنوبهم ويتفكرون في خلق السماوات والأرض ربنا ما خلقت هذا باطلا سبحانك فقنا عذاب النار. In Surah Al-Imran, ayahs 190 and 191, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, verily in the creation of the heavens and the earth and in the alternation of day and night, there are signs for people of understanding. And then Allah mentioned who are these people. Allah said, they are those who remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala standing, sitting and lying down. The three aspects of human life. And, Allah used the word and, not or. They are the people who remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala standing, sitting and lying down, and who think deeply about the creation of the heavens and the earth. And they say, رَبَّنَا مَا خَلَقْتَ هَذَا بَاطِلًا سُبْحَانَكَ فَقِنَا عَذَابَ النَّارِ. They say, O our Rabb, you have not created all of this in vain, you haven't created this for nothing, without purpose. All glory be to you, you are free from any partners, give us salvation and save us from the hellfire. The key word is and. وَيَتَفَكَّرُونَ. Allah did not say أَوْ يَتَفَكَّرُونَ. الَّذِينَ يَذْكُرُونَ اللَّهَ قِيَامًا وَقُعُودًا وَعَلَى جُنُوبِهِمْ وَيَتَفَكَّرُونَ فِي خَلْقِ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. Allah said they are the people who remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and who research and who reflect and who think deeply about the creation. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala described the signs of intelligence, which is to recognize Him first and then to see His signs, to look for His signs in His creation. The natural result of that is that the slave recognizes his own position and his heart fills with the glory and majesty of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he seeks Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's forgiveness and protection from the fire. The purpose of all education is to recognize our Creator and to prepare for our meeting with Him. Second one, now how do you do that in class? And that's where we have the system called integrated teaching. And this is the system that I devised where we can integrate Islam and science. Integrated teaching, there are videos of mine on the internet, on YouTube. Please watch them as well. Integrated teaching consists of working with projects, learning individual subjects through the project in a way where you not only learn the subject, but you learn the way one subject is related with the other. For example, we take a project called mountains. Are you ready to look into our classroom? Are you ready to see what this project in our classroom looks like? All right, here goes. In a typical classroom, there is more than one teacher. High-speed networking, abundant technology, space and materials to make models, arrangements to collaborate with classrooms across the world, arrangements to collaborate with subject experts, with astronauts on the International Space Station. The classroom has smart boards, filming and projection facilities, art material, rock and soil specimens, a physical and digital library, a laboratory to conduct experiments in chemistry. Students are of different age groups, spanning a band of 5 to 8 years. And why? Because human beings learn in groups of different ages and from each other, not when they are segregated according to data manufacture and punished for learning collaboratively. In this classroom, on the project mountains, the students study everything about mountains, how they form and what they influence, weather and rainfall, for example. This covers geography, geology, mineralogy, meteorology, chemistry, and climatology. Those who live on and in those mountains, people who live on the mountains and who live in the mountains. And that covers biology, sociology, anthropology, ecology, botany, entomology, civics, government, because you're studying people. How to measure the height of a mountain without an instrument? How to estimate the weight of a mountain? How mountains affected trade and wars and the history of nations? This covers math, physics, commerce, civics, and history. Map making, orienteering, mountaineering, rock climbing, trekking, and high altitude survival skills and camping are all part of this course. Students go on field trips in which they study the flora and fauna of mountains and how these change with altitude. They research, they conduct experiments, they take photos and videos, and they compare results globally. They document and publish. They invent tools and solve problems. They use technology to access knowledge and to collaborate globally. In each of these areas, they also study appropriate ayat of the Quran, ahadith of Rasulullah, relevant rulings of fiqh, stories from Islamic history and current affairs, and they reflect on the glory and majesty of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Times of dhikr, times of tadabbur, times of tafakkur, times of khilwat, times of muraqabah, so that they understand the relationship between Islam and science, between the Creator and His creation. And this brings alive for them, inshallah, the relevance of Islam in their lives. There are no exams as we know them. However, assessment of learning and teaching is done at every stage of this project. Students make presentations about their learnings, they write logs, they make films, dramas, paint, publish books. They run a daily newspaper of their learnings, digitally published and shared school-wide. Teachers assess the learning of each student throughout the year through this process, focusing on real understanding and application of knowledge, not merely memory. And definitely not on regurgitating undigested information, because teachers are too scared or too lazy to test understanding. Let me ask you a question. Do you feel like going back to school? We come to the second point, citizenship. First point, create people of understanding. Second point, citizenship. Citizenship is learned by practice. In my model, students run the school. They elect a student council, of which teachers are advisory members. The school is for the students, and so they must run it. The student council ensures that all requirements of education are fully met, but they do it in a way that has the participation and active involvement and commitment of all concerned students and teachers in all decision making. The Students' Council is responsible for the recruitment and annual performance assessment of teachers, teacher and student exchange programs, ongoing teacher training, parent-student and teacher interaction, all timetables, infrastructure, housing and housekeeping, security and safety, health and hygiene, sports, activity clubs, external interface, and collaboration across the board. Governance is according to a democratic system that students devise, but which may or may not be modeled on the system in practice in the country, but which students, after due process, deem to be most fitting to their situation. This system is enshrined in a constitution, which is the frame of reference that the students look at when they have any matters to reconcile. The students' council's overall mandate is to achieve the goals of the school while managing the expectations of all constituents, ethically, morally, and legally. The idea is to give students hands-on experience of running larger constituencies in society. This is about training future local, national, and global leaders at all levels. An essential tool for the Students' Council, which they own and run, is a media platform in all its forms: print, video, messaging, audio. A media platform which practices freedom of expression within the framework of truthful, clean, principled, and responsible journalism. Think daily newspaper, TV shows, podcasts, YouTube Live and videos, websites, portals, internet-based messaging, surveys, elections, dealing with opposition, disagreement while maintaining mutual respect, adab al-ikhtilaf, using dissent as a means of achieving greater cohesion, not breaking up. The possibilities are endless, and so is the need. The Student Council's mandate is to care for the community as well as members of the school, because citizenship is about partnering with other citizens for the welfare of everyone. For example, students participate with the state in relevant and appropriate activities. I remember very, very pleasantly my visit to Gordonston, the boarding school in Scotland, in Elgin. I think it was 2015, which, among many other things, has a functional fire service with 2 fire engines that take care of emergencies in the town. If there is a fire, they phone the fire service, and whoever is on fire service duty drops whatever they are doing and they run to the fire station, they get on the fire engine, they go and put out the fire. I asked the young student who was taking us around the school, I asked him, whatever you are doing means what? He said, anything, including worship, including assembly, including cricket. He said, I could be playing a championship match on the field. He said, I will run. They are beepers. He said, as soon as it beeps, I just drop and I run. I don't even ask anybody. They know why I'm running. Imagine the sense of responsibility. Imagine, in that fire station, the only 2 adults are the 2 fire engine drivers. All the rest, the entire crew, are students. Gordonston also has an 80-foot a sailing yacht, a ketch, called the Ocean Spirit of Moray, in which they participate in their tall ships races in European waters, which last for a month at a time. Everyone on that ship, including the captain, is a student. There's just one adult seaman in case of emergency. Imagine the experience of sailing a ship on high seas with an 18-year-old captain in command. My friends, leadership is a contact sport. You learn by doing, not by watching Zoom lectures. For those of you who are thinking, when do the students study? The answer is all the time. This is education, real education, which makes graduates powerful, productive, responsible citizens of the nation and the world. Incidentally, 3 generations of British royalty went to Gordonston. Number 3, entrepreneurship. Number 1, people of understanding. Number 2, citizenship. Number 3, entrepreneurship. That's the final piece in the collage which completes the whole picture. Entrepreneurship is also the key to poverty eradication and to correcting the income disparity, which is the biggest cancer in our societies worldwide. Now, this is done in 5 ways. Number 1, vocational skill training. Every child must learn a skill. Whoever the child is must learn a skill. Schools must provide certification courses in different skills so that the student becomes a qualified technician in that skill, and if they want, maybe they can use that skill as a means of earning revenue if they wish. Skill training, remember, is also about teaching attitudes, discipline, respect for the work ethic, working with your hands, planning, focus on quality, relationship building, and taking pride in one's work. It is one of the best tools that I know for character building. Number 2, practicing entrepreneurship. The students run the school cafeteria. This includes assessing customer needs and preferences, planning menus, buying raw material, preparing meals and snacks, service delivery, customer relations, health and hygiene, staff training, budgeting, pricing, and making a profit at the end of the year. In addition, this cafeteria is a means of benefiting others in the community, including the homeless, the aged, and the hospitalized and others. Number 3 initiative is a venture capital rolling fund, owned and funded by the students, to which philanthropists can also donate. This fund vets all new business ideas and provides either interest-free loans or acquires a stake in the business. I won't go into the details of the vetting process, but for those of you who are interested, there's a nice show called Shark Tank, where hopeful entrepreneurs pitch their ideas to a group of VCs. Do watch that. And do watch the episode about ideas that were rejected by the Shark Tank, but which went on to make millions. It's good to keep the ego in control. Number 4, the 4th in this list, is a tuck shop in the school, which is run as a profit center and stocks products from students' enterprises on a profit-sharing basis. In addition to its normal daily activity, the tuck shop might also do periodic sales campaigns and so on and so forth, and participates in charitable activities. Number 5, the final initiative, is a bank that the students own and run on Islamic principles. Knowing how money works and how to make it work are critical life skills which must be taught in school. Let me reiterate that schools must become the training ground for real life by providing education which is practical, rooted in reality, and highly responsive to societal needs, and which develops the faculties and skills of the students. We must raise highly competent individuals who are firmly rooted in a foundation of truth. This is eminently doable and highly effective. A fundamental foundation of truth that is modeled on the blessed Sunnah, on the lifestyle, on the methodology of our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So I must ask you the question again. Should you homeschool? So let's see now, decide, well, I would like to know. So let me give you a test. And the test is, if you want to ask, should you homeschool? Let me tell you what you need if you want to homeschool. You need 4 major things. Number 1, you need complete dedication of your time to homeschooling. Ideally, both parents, but maybe you can't do both parents, but one parent 24/7 cannot be doing anything else. Especially if you have several children, the task becomes even more complex. Different children of different ages, studying at different levels. We need complete and total dedication of the time of at least one parent, with the other parent devoting significant amounts of time to the homeschooling process. Number 1, do you have that? Number 2, knowledge of content, because you are the teacher. The parent is the teacher. So the parent must know the content. They must be able to know the content at a level. Again, as I said, multiple children means multiple levels. Number 3 is training in effective delivery. Do you know how to deliver this content? I can be an expert in something, but I may not be the best teacher for that thing. One of the best ways to understand this is people who teach languages. You can speak the language fluently, but to teach a language takes a very different set of skills and technology and tools. Do you have that? Number 4, knowledge of child psychology. And please, spare me. Parents who say, oh, but I know my children. No, you don't know your children. You do not know your children. Ask people who have problems with children, people whose children have drug problems, people whose children commit suicide, people whose children are in depression, people whose children have all kinds of problems, serious psychological issues. Their parents are the last ones to know about that. So if you are a parent and you think you know your children, no, you don't. You need to know your child, and you need then the tools, you need the knowledge of child psychology to understand what is going on with your child. And number 5 is all the gamut of resources and tools to be able to deliver a top quality learning experience for your child. Now, assess yourself. What is your skill gap? What do you have today? And what do you need? And please, don't fall into this trap of saying, oh, but you see, I'm a cardiologist, I'm a gynecologist, I'm a neurologist, I'm a rocket scientist, I'm this. You can be anything. You're not necessarily the best teacher for your child. So look at the list of things I told you. Total dedication of time, knowledge of content, training in effective delivery, knowledge of child psychology, and all the gamut of resources and tools that you need. Do you have that? What is the skill gap? You are here, it is here. What does it look like? If it looks like the Gulf of Mexico, run like hell. Number 2, what will it take to fill this? You still want to do that? No problem, all power to you. What does it take to train yourself? And number 3, can you do it in the time? Because your child needs homeschooling today. And if there is a big gap, then you need to train yourself then how are you going to do that in time? Remember, the consequences, like schools, can be both beneficial or painful, both permanent. Now, the key challenge for all homeschoolers and homeschooling parents is very simple but very complex, and that is how to hook and retain the interest of your child day after day after day, while at the same time dealing with other things in your life which are also important. For example, your daily chores at home, the work that you need to do. You have to go out to do things, and so on and so forth. I don't need to make a list. You are living that. Remember, at the end of this, to opt out, to say, sorry, I'm not doing homeschooling, is a legitimate, valid, and often the wisest choice. Let's look at another thing, which is remote teaching. Now, remote teaching is basically bring the school home. In homeschooling, the parent has to do everything. They have to create class plans. They have to get the material. They have to do everything to do with teaching the child. Even if they're following some curriculum and so on and so forth, or some system, they are completely responsible for creating everything they need in order to teach the child and then to deliver that whole knowledge base. Whereas in remote teaching, there is a relief, which is you can bring, literally it's like saying bring the school home, because you're following a ready-made curriculum. It is trained teachers who are delivering that curriculum. You as a parent are not delivering it. You've got customized material which those teachers are using. There is structured learning and testing in the whole process. There is measurable progress because you're following a whole curriculum, and the results at the end of the day are valid for further education. So these are the upsides, pros to remote teaching. But believe me, there are also cons. There's also a downside to that, like everything else. Now, what is the downside? The downside to remote teaching is, number one, the toxicity of long screen times. Believe me, you can't just stick the child in front of a Zoom screen and disappear. It doesn't work. Just sitting in front of a screen and looking at it for hours at a time is bad. It's bad for the eyes. You have skeletal problems. It's bad for the back. It's bad in many different ways. So, toxicity of long screen time. Number two is to keep the child's attention. I've spoken to many remote teachers, and every one of them has the same issue, which is to keep the attention of the child. And they say that the computer is the biggest problem. Yeah, sounds funny, right? Because they say that a child, you know, and I know this in Zoom meetings, maybe you did it as well, which is that you can shift between screens, and the meeting can be going on and you can be looking at something else. The other people don't know that. One teacher said to me that in a class, I'm physically there. If I ask a child a question, the child doesn't answer, I can follow it up. In a Zoom session, the child just disconnects. And if you ask them, they say, well, I was having Wi-Fi problems. What can you do? So, keeping the child's attention, guaranteeing that they are actually paying attention to the class. Third thing is, believe it or not, this thing started now, this whole Zoom teaching and remote teaching is really just about 1 year old, thanks to COVID. We hope it will go away soon. But obviously, it also means that not every teacher who's teaching remotely is a trained teacher, trained to teach in this methodology. They're not. They're struggling. Many of them are just converting textbooks into PowerPoint slides. And they're trying to do their best. I'm not talking about their effort. They're making an effort. But the point is that they are not trained to deliver that material in the best possible way, no matter how much effort they make. So teacher and material quality is another problem. Then frustration. Sheer teacher and student frustration. There are many teachers who say it quite openly, I'm just doing this because it's a job, period. And the students, they're very frustrated. Then, high cost of tools. One parent said to me, I've got 5 children, which means I have to buy 5 laptops. Right? Now imagine. High cost of material. Then cyberbullying, teacher exhaustion. There are problems of different kinds. And of course, health issues. Mental health issues, physical health issues, issues with children, skeletal issues, back problems, this, that. Just keeping a child sitting in one place for several hours, this is unhealthy by itself. But having given all of this sub story, overall, remote teaching is easier than homeschooling because there is somebody else doing that job of preparing the classes and the rest of it. What remains essential in both homeschooling as well as remote teaching is parental attention and supervision. In a regular school, you can actually, and you take your child to school, drop them there, and then you pick them up 6 hours later, 8 hours later, the teachers take care of it. Does not happen, cannot happen in homeschooling or in remote teaching. If you do that, then the child learns nothing. So, do you have the time? Do you have the dedication? It is your child, but do you have the time and do you have the dedication to give this full-time attention? Let me end by asking you a question about homeschooling. Should you do it or should you not do it? Thank you very much for listening. I hope this is useful. Most welcome to comment. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.